This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Detroit is the greatest!
Straight up light you on fire for a Coney dog right now.
Darren McCarty comes back to Neiman in front of him. McCarty draws. McCarty in. McCarty scores! A magnum goal! Darren McCarty!
Stafford takes, throws, end zone, Calvin, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Welcome back. This is the Motor City Sports Rant on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network on DetroitSportsPodcast.com. As always, I am Jason Jarvie. Follow me on Twitter at Jarvie the King. Sitting across from me, John the Doc Macaroon. We're here
I am Smack Talker Skywalker, and I got a mic saber for a hater.
You know, you did that last week. You knew that I didn't have my computer hooked up, so you just wanted to play that.
You know, lots of hate going to be spewed probably from this very podcast because I get a sense that you and I are both very angry and we're both scratching our heads figuring out what are we going to do with these Detroit Tigers. I can't wait to rant this week on this very podcast.
We are just dumbfounded. I do want to give a belated Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, all the ladies who act like mothers, and you know what you do. You are appreciated, and if you are listening to this podcast, this one's for you. So let's open it up. Let's talk some Tigers. You know, April showers into May flowers, and May has not been a good month for the Tigers so far.
Jason, it's like, you know, all we're looking for is a little bit of consistency with this team. When you see a bad team, you start to see what we're seeing with the Detroit Tigers, where the hitting comes through and then the pitching falls, where your pitchers start, you know, and give up only a run or two, and then your offense goes to shit. You have a problem with these Tigers in that they're very streaky. You know, you had a week where you played very well, went 5-1, and then you go out there and get swept consecutively by Cleveland and Texas.
Texas at home.
That is unbelievable. And in you lost a game where you actually scored some runs. When you're up 5-2, you should not be losing the game 10-5 or
yeah,
so.
And when you get a performance like Justin Verlander giving you 7 solid innings of, you know, you had a 2-run lead, and it's a small lead, but the guys you brought in, the bullpen was actually looking somewhat dependable, really coming into that game, or really into Saturday's game. But the team imploded.
Right. What's super tough to look at, Jason, is Brad Ausmus on Sunday's game did everything correct. You're up 2-0 with Justin Verlander. You take him out. Obviously, he had a great performance. Everyone was thinking, okay, let's let him wear pink the rest of the year. You know, a great performance after he came out and said, I will be dominant again. He came out there and showed his mettle, and we expect that from time to time. The problem is we're not getting it game in, game out, which you're not going to. This is what you're going to see up and down with Verlander. But you got 2 lefties coming up for Texas. So what do? Get the guy that you brought in to be the guy in the bullpen that could be a stabilizing force in Wilson. What does he do to the first 2 left-handed batters? Boom, 6 pitches, 2 guys on base. Okay, so then Brad Ausmus goes to Lowe, another guy that you thought, okay, this is someone that can be productive. He implodes. You know, and it was just your comedy of errors. With Wilson, we trade him off. He comes back and gets a grand slam. Are you serious? It was like rubbing it in our face. It's really frustrating in that Sunday's game, you can't blame Ausmus. And when we start talking about, well, whether we should move on from him or not, the situation you got to say is, listen, he's not the problem, but he's not the solution either. And so that's a big problem.
That's my biggest thing is everybody in Ausmus even admitted it. He said that he's in the crosshairs.
In the crosshairs.
Isn't all Ausmus's fault. I know people wanted him gone at the end of last season.
Are we overreacting? It's 14-16. It's a team that we all kind of thought would be around 500. Where is it that you would think, okay, it's time to blow Ausmus out? When you look at it collectively, are you just saying that this is a guy that doesn't instill confidence in you? A lot of things to talk about with Ausmus. It's not fair if he were to be let go. He would be the scapegoat. But something has to change. You can't what are you going to do? You're not going to sit. You're not going to send Cabrera down. You can't do that. What are you going to do? You can't blame all the 25 players on the squad. It's the players' fault, but it just doesn't seem like this mix, for whatever reason, this mix is rotten.
And I'm not sure if that's Ausmus's fault, though. You broomed out Dombrowski last year. You bring in Al Avila, and On paper, it looked like he put together a pretty good roster, and for whatever reason, it's just not working. I think we're probably overreacting a little bit. This is a 162 game season where it's 14 and 16. We're 30 games into the season. There's still a lot of baseball left, but at the same time, I don't really think this is what we're going to see all season. We're going to see streaks of, they're going to have prolonged losing streaks, and then next you're going to see them win a bunch of games, and you're going to be like, okay, I see. They're coming around. They're just getting it, and that's because it's on the players. I'm not saying Office isn't all to blame, and maybe he isn't the manager to take this team to the next level. But when I'm just looking at the lineup with the hitting wise and hitting,
This is bad.
It is bad. You got Nick Castellanos in the last 7 games batting .429. He's batting out of his mind. Cabrera, he's hitting .391. Everybody else, Ian Kinsler, .269. Anthony Ghost, .214. Justin Upton, .200. V-Mart, Jose Iglesias, Jared Saltalamacchia, James McCann, JD Martinez, all under 100. JD Martinez is hitting .05 right now in the last 7 games.
Wow. Really? There you go.
And he hasn't been good all year, really. JD Martinez for the year hitting .230. We need more from that guy. We need more from Justin Upton. The players need to actually produce. They're not producing.
And here's a situation where it's like you have an answer, but then there's ancillary problems that come with it. Steven Moya is batting out of his mind in the minors. He's got around 7 home runs. He's tearing the baseball out, he's tearing the cover off the ball in the minors. But all that doesn't mean anything. We need it up here. We need that production up here. Okay, fine. But here's a problem. Where are you going to put him? There's a problem. We got a guy who's left-handed who's on fire, who could be productive here. We don't got a spot for him. That's a big problem. That's a big problem because Ghost has been awful, like we all predicted in center field. Upton has struggled. Martinez has struggled. Now you got a situation where all your outfielders aren't playing well. You got a guy that could be an answer. You can't even bring him up. That's a big-time problem.
I mean, and Brad Ausmus is doing everything he can to get as much as he can out of this team, because I think the stark reality is that this is what you're going to have. This is what you're going to have all season. But see,
Jason, I don't think that's a reality. See, here's the problem. You would think that with Zimmerman, Verlander, Sanchez, that that combination should not go a week where you lose all the games. Now, of course, Zimmerman, didn't pitch all that well in his last start, but it wasn't a disaster. He's 5-1. He's nowhere near a problem. But the rest of the guys got to step it up. And the situation where the injury to Green has been lingering, this whole blister problem, another setback for him. So you have a problem where the 4th and 5th guys are a disaster. You have Pelfrey going out there week in, week out, and they're just saying it every start. We're spinning our wheels. Basically, when he goes out there, Jason, you're basically trailing 5-0 because he's going to go 5 innings, give up 5 runs. And whether it's a combination of a lot of hits or a massive moonshots, Pelfrey is ineffective. We all see it. You gave him 2 years. I looked at that and I'm like, oh boy, you made a huge mistake. Now, the going rate is not terrible, $8 million. That's what the going rate is. You could complain about that, $8 million for a 4-starter, but this guy is not producing. You got to shift him to the bullpen. It should have been done already. You can't send him out there. He's a losing pitcher. You go out there and you're going to go out there with, a disadvantage. It's a complete disaster. I would say the biggest cause of the struggles right now is when you have 4 of your 5 starters with ERAs higher than 5. You're in a situation where you have problems.
So they're putting too much pressure on our batters to produce.
Exactly. These guys are going to hit. You know that. That's what you can count on is a consistent offense that's going to score around, on average, 4 runs throughout the course of the year. The problem is, though, the combination of the starters and bullpen haven't been in sync so far, and it's a disaster.
It just goes around and around. The hitters have too much pressure on them because the pitchers are giving up too much runs. But the pitchers are going out there knowing that they need to be almost perfect because our hitting isn't going to give us more than 2 or 3 runs a game. It's a vicious cycle, and there's no answer. I mean, I'm really trying to rack my brain and trying to see what could they do this season to fix this, and I don't see it. You fire Brad Ausmus. Who do you bring up to replace him? Do you get Gene Lamont? Is he going to do anything? Do you bring up Lloyd McClendon from Toledo? Do you go out and hire somebody? If you go out and hire somebody from outside the system, there's at least going to be a learning curve.
There's a name out there that all the media are speculating that would be great in terms of what he would say post-game, how he would respond.
Guillen.
That's the guy. Now, I don't think this far removed from his last coaching job that he's going to be as effective and has as, his stock isn't as high, but he would be entertaining. I don't think they would go 6 games where he wouldn't produce a soundbite or at least light into him publicly. And we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that 1 second because Brad Ausmus was questioned heavily after the game on Sunday. And he said, I'm in the crosshairs. But he also came out and let out some wrinkles too. And he said, hey, why do you guys assume that I don't yell at these guys in private? Why do you assume that I'm not, just because you see me all calm, cool, and collected on, in the dugout, that I'm just not passionate? But here's the thing, and I can give you an example. What happens is that, Brad Ausmus is probably what you describe as a player's manager. He's a guy who's really nice.
He's not going to go throw anybody under the bus.
Publicly. I do believe he's got some fire and passion behind the scenes, but it doesn't have as much weight. You're not using your full resources. Let's say, for example, on this podcast, I come to you and I say, hey, Jason, I'd like for you to show up on time. I'd like for you to Exactly. I'd like for you to put your podcast up every day that you say you're going to put it up.
No.
Exactly. What's that going to do behind these walls? Nothing. Now, if I potentially go on our Twitter page with a huge following and start going, hey, Jason, when are you going to show up? Hey, Jason, when are you going to put up your show? Now you're going to get a little bit more heat on you. That might push you a little bit more. So in my opinion, I think that Brad Ausmus, when he says, and the other quote that pissed me off was, just because we're 14 and 16, I'm not going to change my routines. You got to change everything. You're a 500 manager. So what he should do
Don't you think he's changed a bunch already?
No, he hasn't changed a bunch. He's still the calm, cool guy in the dugout. Still, I would say he needs to be a little bit more animated publicly. He needs to come out and say, listen, this is a ball club that I believe can win the World Series, but right now we're playing with our heads up our asses.
That's something.
It won't have any effect.
It's very hard to do, though.
No, it's not.
If you're a person, if that's the way you are,
it's not.
You can't just flick a switch and become somebody that you're not.
All I'm saying is once, twice. All you got to do is come out and say, listen, I really believe in this team, whether I'm going to be fired or not. I believe this is a team that can win the World Series. We got to collectively, pull up our bootstraps and play well. I believe that would have more of a massive impact than him just going behind the scenes and just saying what it is. I think that he's got to change things up.
I don't know.
He must make changes.
I think if he were to do that once or twice and just go back to
just once even.
If he does it once, I think he loses any kind of shred of integrity that he has.
He's going to get fired. Jason, every day from now on, every week, there's going to be a did Brad Ausmus get fired kind of text, tweets, messages. All the phone calls you're going to get at work are going to be about, hey, we need to fire this guy. That's going to be the talk of the summer. Nothing else.
If he's going to get fired, then why should he change anything? He knows what this team is. See,
now that's a great point. Do you go down with the ship as you are, or do you go down and make changes? I'm a guy that if I see that I'm going to go down with the ship, I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that I gave it my best effort.
Yeah,
he
but
hasn't gone public.
If you do that, I think you burn a lot of bridges. I think you burn a lot of the team. And I think you do what you're doing because, the first year he was here, he made it to the playoffs.
Jason, you're missing my point. You're missing the point that maybe, even if it's 25% chance, you have a chance that maybe that little spark might light the fire that takes this team on a 15 out of 20 game win streak. All you got to remember, 2006, I'm not coming up with this out of thin air. In 2006, the Tigers were, started out about 500. They played an awful game, and Jim Leland came out. It was a getaway game in Detroit, and they were about to go out to Oakland. And he came out and said, whoa, we're going to win games, we're going to lose games. But what we didn't do was put out effort, and that's not going to happen on my watch. And that was the crap that was happening before. And he was animated, and you saw right away that 2006 team skyrocketed. He said, this crap is going to stop now.
You know what that 2006 Tigers team had that this Tigers team doesn't have, though?
What do they have?
Leadership. They don't have leadership in the players.
There's a problem, yeah.
You don't have a Kenny Rogers out there who's seen that. You don't have a Pudge Rodriguez, Placido Polanco, Carlos Guillen. All those guys those were leaders in the locker room. We don't have a leader. The biggest leader that we have would probably be Ian Kinsler. Justin Verlander, the dude's all about himself. I'm sorry. He's not the leader of this team. We don't have that. And the problem's with the players. And you know what? Ozzie Guillen, I think it's a very interesting idea. But I think Ozzie Guillen would have been smarter at the beginning of the season or at the end of last season. You let Brad Ausmus go. You bring Ozzie Guillen. Let him instill his culture. And so we'd see what's going to happen. And then if you bring him in mid-season, nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change until the end of the season, and he gets a full off season.
So
it's doomed for Brad Ausmus.
So big picture wise, your thinking is you don't see with the talent on this team a scenario in which a managerial change will make a big difference. I disagree. I think that a managerial change will probably result in a little bit more wins and a little bit more consistency in terms of maybe if you're going to go in a week period, instead of going 0-6 or 1-5, you might go 2-4, 3-3. I do believe that with a manager that's better, with a better tactician, a guy that knows how to use his pitchers wisely, and a guy with a different voice in the room, I do believe that might put the onus on the players, and it might have to, allow them to say, listen, we got our manager fired, Brad Ausmus. He didn't deserve it. We got to buckle down, or next things up at the All-Star break, you start looking at selling. Just wholesale. This is it. I really believe it's time to maybe start talking about in future shows and conceptually, it's time to maybe deconstruct this team.
That's what I was thinking on the way over here. And
is it time to deconstruct?
That's what I agree with you. I think if they do fire Brad Ausmus, which if they keep sliding, I think probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll be talking about this on a podcast that he's not here and who the Tigers are bringing in. And I agree. If there is a few wins here more than with Brad Ausmus, I think it's not going to be because of the manager. It'll be because he was fired, and then the players, say, "Hey, this is our last shot," essentially. And on the way to this podcast, I'm like, it's just not clicking. There's something not working on this team, on paper and out on the field. And I think we really need to start looking at blowing it up. I was thinking about the Red Wings. I think I look at that roster and I kind of just want to blow it up. The Tigers,
sprinkle Miguel, sprinkle Vmart, sprinkle Castellanos. Maybe, hey, even you might have to just unload them to get a guy that could be a fourth or fifth starter.
Are you gonna blast me to suggest trading Miguel Cabrera?
No, I'm not going to blast you at all. At this point in time, Jason, this is not, now if you look at it just on the basis of this season, you could say, yeah, it's short-sighted, but we've been waiting since 2006 for the payoff. And here's the thing, you are now being crushed under the weight of expectations when you have a $200 million payroll. That's the thing. You have teams that are paying way less for their players that are having more success than you. So when you have that scenario and you have a fan base that's impatient, you're going to have a big problem. When we look at the Tigers, there's way more problems than there are solutions. And here's another problem. Al Avila is going to lose face because if Brad Ausmus gets fired, my thinking is he's not going to come out after, saving him after the 2015 season and then blow him out.
Yeah,
it's going to have to come down from above. And so what does that mean? That means in your first tenure, you basically become a lame duck general manager. You have no cachet, no respect. That's why I say these guys, when they come in, you have to blow out the manager and bring in your own guys, so it's on you. Mike Ilitch coming in and firing Brad Ausmus is going to make Al Avila look stupid.
Dude, this team is just such a mess. Like, who do you want to see? Is there anybody on this team untouchable? I think there's a couple guys that I'd say you want to keep on your team. I think Nick Castellanos, he's one guy that I think he's steadily improved. And I think as a third baseman, he's somebody you could build around.
But don't you see, maybe the thinking is with him is that maybe right now this is what you could call a high. Can he keep this up? I mean, look at defensively again yesterday, again on Sunday. Errant throw from third base.
True. I mean, I completely agree, but I think there's still room for improvement there. I think he's a guy who could develop into a leader on this team. I think Nick Castellanos and JD Martinez, just because of his age. How long was Jordan Zimmerman's contract for?
I think 7 years.
7 years?
I'm going to look at it right now.
If he's here for 7 years, I think after Zimmerman and maybe Alex Wilson, I think nobody else is untouchable. Is it crazy enough to say let's shop around Justin Verlander? But I think coming with that though is I don't think anybody out there is really going to take Justin Verlander. We might get some like 6th round picks and some single A prospects for Justin Verlander right now. Just
Zimmerman's at 5 years, $110 million.
I think that's the guy. And it's a very small sample size, but it's somebody that you've seen go through. He had Tommy John surgery, and I think Justin Verlander is just so unwilling to change what he does. The dude's all about himself. And last year we talked about how he found himself in the second half of the season, how he figured it out. And everybody sees he's not the same pitcher. He's a completely different pitcher. But all through the beginning of this season, it's like he forgot everything. And he's like, I'm the same bulldog pitcher. I'm just gonna go out there and try to bury people.
When you look at JV, basically you have to ask, what's his out pitch? Now, yesterday his speeds were up. He was able to, get guys out, and he had command of his
speeds
pitches.
Were up, but he was also using at least 50% off-speed pitches.
Right.
That's what you got to do. That's just where he is in his career, and I don't think
where he is in his career is a 500 pitcher. That's where he is. And it sucks to say they were paying a guy, $28 million a year to be a 11-11, 12-12 pitcher, but that's what you're going to see. Some great performances, some bad ones.
I think he can be more than a 500 pitcher. If he were to be selfless, take some advice and actually use it, the dude could be a good pitcher again. Look at what Roy Halladay did. When did he actually start getting good? He started using his off-speed pitches. He started developing that stuff. He wasn't reliant on a 96, 97 mile per hour fastball. Verlander has that. He has the ability, kind of like our other great Detroit leader in Matt Stafford. They have all the ability in the world. It's just, can they actually use it? Can they harness it to become something great?
So, Jason, with all the struggles, I do have a little bit of hope for the chance that the Tigers could maybe rebound this week. So far in interleague play, we've been 5-1 this year. We had success versus
rebound
Pittsburgh.
this week.
This week, I know the schedule looks
the
tight.
Nationals going up against Strasburg, Joe Ross and Scherzer.
I said some hope. I didn't say a lot, but just when the Tigers have their backs against the wall, they seem to kind of come out of it. So we got to see interleague play, maybe something that may help them. I know it's tough. You said it's on the road versus Washington, and who's next?
Then it's at Baltimore.
Oh, my goodness.
To start the series off, you got Mike Pelfrey.
Okay, well, you have to have a little bit of hope. I don't believe the Tigers are actually going to make a move to fire Brad Ausmus. I just don't see it, because it would be something along the lines of causing a lot of instability. I think that they might wait until the All-Star game, or maybe even wait till the end of the season. But it's one of those situations, you got to ride it out. You got to see what this team can really do. And maybe some games away from home is just what we needed. But everyone has to step up, from the manager to the players. It's one of those things where there's not a lot of hope going on, but if they can start putting things together, if they can start playing a better brand of baseball, then you can put some wins together. I mean, it's not like we're getting dominated. It's just key mistakes here and there that are adding up into a losing games.
So these next 7 games, you get at Washington for 3 games, you get at Baltimore for 4 games. What do you think would save Brad Ausmus's job for? Well, here's 2 questions. What record do you think he needs to go in these next 7 games to really continue his season, his tenure here as the Tigers manager? And what do you think they're actually going to do in these next 7 games?
I see 3 and 4.
That's what you think. That's what you think is going to happen. Or?
I think he needs to be at least. He can't be too far under 500 going the rest of the way. The heat will get too hot. If he can go 3 and 4, 4 and 3 in these next 7 games, he'll quiet the critics. And what he needs another move where he can say that, hey, I made an impact. Because he's got to start showing some things that lead people to believe that he's the solution. When he made the lineup changes, it worked for a week, 5-1.
For a week, yeah.
The problem is, though, he couldn't carry it over. And so the issue is then now, what is he going to do? What creativity is he going to show? How is he going to mix and match? And in the National League, in interleague play, it's an opportunity for a manager to go out there and actually show what he's got, because you got to do a little bit more managing in interleague play in terms of double switches, when you're going to take your pitcher out and things like that. So it's another chance maybe to look a little bit more closely into what Brad Ausmus has got and what he's learned.
So what do you think that they're actually going to do, though, these next 7 games? Because I agree with you. I agree with you. I think to really prolong his tenure, he needs to go right around 500. It'll definitely be better if he's 4 and 3, but if he's 3 and 4, I think he's at least save a little bit of face.
Okay, judging by how they've been playing, I mean, if you just look at how they've been playing, you wouldn't yell at me or look at me cross-eyed if I said they went 1 and 6 or 2 and 5.
Yep, that was exactly what I thought. 1 and 6, because
oh boy, that gets them fired.
You're going up against great pitchers. You're going up, and Baltimore is a good team. The whole series against Washington, probably your best chance is going to be Wednesday when you get Zimmerman versus Scherzer. But those are classic games, though, when
What time is Wednesday? I'm definitely tuning in that.
Wednesday is 7:05.
Definitely tune in Wednesday. Ooh,
That's
prime
for sure.
time. Sure, Zimmerman, Scherzer.
It's gonna be. It's a rematch. It's as old. They're both the same. It's their old teams, and I see this. It's gonna be a low scoring affair, and the game's gonna be decided when
Nick Castellanos crushes a home run, baby, 1-0.
The game's gonna be decided when Zimmerman comes out, and then they decide to just destroy our bullpen. It's gonna be. I think it's gonna be 1-6 because then you open up the Baltimore series with Pelfrey, and then you get Verlander, Sanchez, and Fulmer. Verlander's going up against their best pitcher. I think it's going to be the same thing with Zimmerman in Scherzer. I think it's going to be 1-6, and I think probably May 15th, over under May 15th. What do you think will he be gone, or will he still be here by May 15th?
I'm going to say over. I just don't see him doing it because, like I said, perception is really important as a general manager. You can't stick by a guy and then fire him after 35, 40 games and then go and expect that you're going to be respected by the players or by Major League Baseball. Because I don't believe he'll make that decision. I believe, he's an old school guy. This is a guy that's not going to, make a rash decision. He's got to think this thing through. And here's the worst part. This is the part that's really saving Brad Ausmus. There's no clear-cut Joe Madden out there that's going to come in here and go, that's the guy. There's no Scotty Bowman out there. There's no guy that's out there that you say, go get him, go pay him the money. I would say wait and see if Farrell from Boston gets fired and axed and see what happens with that and see if you can bring him in here. I'm thinking, did he get fired or no? I don't think he has. But the talk with him has just been he's on the way out. So wait for him. He's a guy with the World Series experience.
I would say, yeah, because there really isn't an option out there.
It's nobody.
I mean, unless you are bringing in Ozzie Guillen, but again, it's not going to do anything this season.
Ozzie Guillen will be good for 2 years and he'd be blown out because he's a guy that would come in here and just totally upset the chemistry, and there's a high chance the players would revolt.
So then, why do you fire Ausmus at all? Why are we even talking about firing Ausmus? If nothing's have we now determined that nothing is going to change this year? Why do we even fire Ausmus?
Great question, and I thought about that because
it doesn't.
No, but here's why.
So dumb.
Here's why you fire Ausmus. In that you look at it collectively, he is a manager that needed to have experience before he took this job. This is a guy that's not totally awful. Okay, this is a guy that's still learning on the job. And you got to remember, when they brought him here, this is why the move, when he came out, if you look back on our old podcast on our YouTube page, we were like, are you kidding me? You're giving a team with $175 million payroll and everyone's starving for a World Series, and you're just coming off of that disastrous series versus Boston. You're going to give the keys to Brad Ausmus, who had zero managerial experience outside of the baseball classic. Are you kidding me? No minor league experience, no college experience, no high school experience. He had never managed before other than that he was a catcher who played and had a relatively above average career. But this guy had never managed a game, so you basically had a guy that was learning on the job. So the reason why you'd fire him is collectively you say, okay, this is a team in the next 2 or 3 years where we got to make a postseason run. We got to do it. And we don't think that we're 5 moves away. We think we're just 1 or 2 moves away. And if we're
way more moves
well,
away.
I'm saying this is not what the fans are thinking. This is what probably the talking heads at the table are thinking, is that, hey, we're not that far away. If we can just continue to improve the bullpen, continue to add 1 or 2 more pieces, then in a year or 2 with the right manager, look at Joe Madden, 1 year in Chicago.
He had a lot more better. He had super prospects on his team.
Exactly,
though.
But
I will say for Ausmus though, if he can get past this Washington-Baltimore gauntlet, he has a favorable schedule after this. You come home, you got 3 against Minnesota, you got 3 against Tampa Bay, and you get 3 against Philadelphia. You get a 9-game homestand against some subpar teams.
That could be the problem, because if the fans revolt, then you're going to have a situation where the pressure could be, more intense. So that might be the stand where he gets axed. That 9-game stand maybe ups the percentage that he gets fired to maybe 60%.
I don't know. I see this team because it's a roller coaster. That's all this is. All it is. They've been up and down this entire season so far. And I think it's going to continue. They probably, if they go 3-4, 4-3 in this next couple games, they're going to come home, and I bet you they go better than 500. I think in 9 games, I bet they go 6-3.
Yeah, and what sucks and what kind of hurts a little bit in hindsight, when you look at it without any potential rings, you probably have a situation where a lot of people, when they look at this era of the Tigers, aren't going to look at all the success they had. They're probably going to look back and go, you know what? This is like a Pistons type situation where you had this collection of talent and you didn't have the right formula to move some people on and also keep it going. You needed to maybe move a Victor Martinez and not re-sign him. Maybe you needed to not trade off so many prospects from the minors in order to get a David Price. Maybe you needed to not sell off everything and potentially keep this train rolling, because I'm starting to think that the train is now moving towards a rebuild. Not a regroup, not a retool, because you can't. I mean, I don't see how management and Mike Ilitch can continue to dump $200 million, $210, $215 with no playoffs and no success. You can't do that. It's impossible. Rebuild, I think, is the train we're headed, and we're trying to stop that train. We're trying to do whatever we can, but it looks like that train's going full speed ahead to rebuild, and we'll see what happens.
Before we take a break and switch subjects, I'm looking at Cleveland. They're 15-13, second in the Central. I'm looking at their regular attendance to their games. Nobody goes to Indian games. Their opening day, they had just about 34,500. The next game, 10,000. Their next, let's see, then they had the next weekend where they actually had some decent turnout. They had 10,000, 15,000, and 20,000.
All the money's going to Cleveland Cavaliers, my man. That's that's where it's at. That's why the attendance is down.
But then this last series against Detroit, Tuesday, 11,000. Wednesday, 8,700 people.
Announced attendance. Oh.
And then 10,000.
This is bad.
Dude, I mean, it's a second place team.
That's Cleveland. I mean,
I guess
they're getting on the LeBron bandwagon. They're 8-0 in the postseason. They're going to get some money for sure.
And that's where we're going to start next on our next segment when we come back, talking about the Pistons, their series with the Cavs, and do you feel a little bit better after seeing what the Cavs are doing in these playoffs on the Motor City Sports Rant, DetroitSportsPodcast.com.
Doc here. I want to tell you about our great sponsor, Fanatic U. FanaticU.com has recently opened a brand new location out there in Brighton, Livingston County. Go check it out. FanaticU.com, Detroit Sports official outfitter and the official outfitter of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Go check out FanaticU.com. They got a great selection. Pistons, Wings, Lions, Tigers. If you're a fan, then there's no better place to shop than FanaticU.com. They got great deals. Great selection, very easy. I go there all the time. I check it out. You gotta start supporting the local teams and continue that support. Go visit FanaticU.com and check out our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast for great deals and coupon codes to save money. FanaticU.com, Detroit Sports official outfitter. Now back to Doc and Jarvie on the Motor City Sports Rant, episode 61.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money.
Dollar, 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 ching, ching, bling, bling, cut the chatter. You ain't talking money, then you're talking no matter. Ching, ching, bling, bling, patent pockets. We take the dollar, dollar, can a damn soul stop it.
Motor City Sports Rant, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Let's dive into a little bit of Pistons talk. The season is over, and we were eliminated in 4 games by the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I know on this podcast and on everywhere, it was a big controversy. Who did you want? Did you want the Cleveland Cavaliers or did you want the Toronto Raptors? And after that first round series, I think a lot of people were saying it was like, oh, dude, Toronto, you wanted to go against Toronto. You saw they squeaked by into the second round. But after seeing the Cavs in their first round beat us in 4 games, shooting 46% field goal percentage, 41% from 3-point range, getting 41 rebounds a game and 22 assists. So, I mean, those are pretty good stats. Going up against the Hawks, you would have assumed the Atlanta Hawks were going to put up a much better fight than the Pistons, because we were in a lot of those games and we gave them pretty much everything we got. And the Hawks dominated us this year. So you assumed that the Hawks would have put up somewhat of a fight against them. So the Cavaliers just went out and they shot 46% from field goal percentage and they shot 50% from 3-point range. Ooh. That's ridiculous. And it's just crazy. I think the Hawks, they feel exactly like we do right now, because during that series, I think Piston fans everywhere were just waiting for the Cavaliers to stop making those shots, to get cold. You didn't assume that they would just continue to shoot the lights out. And they go into the second round, and they essentially do the exact same thing, only better.
Listen, I'm openly wrong. I made a mistake. I thought that the Pistons would match up better versus Cleveland, have more chance of success, but Cleveland played great. And here's the thing. Here's the toughest part about, where the Pistons stood is that, is it a false sense of hope because it was Cleveland's opening round and they hadn't gotten into gear? Look what they're doing now. They're shooting they're shooting such a high percentage of three-pointers. It's unbelievable. J.R. Smith is resurging again. LeBron is leading. And a guy that is, coming into his own again, and a guy that we're looking to compare Andre Drummond to, Kevin Love, has been unbelievable in this series versus the Hawks. Now, the Hawks, are a little bit at a disadvantage because they had a tough 6-game series versus Boston, and they're coming into it not as rested as Cleveland after that sweep. But Cleveland's just a team right now that collectively looks like an NBA Finals caliber team. So I don't blame the Pistons for losing. They kept it close. They were competitive, but now you can start to see that, okay, if you're going to start to build and who you're going to look to beat, it's going to be, you got to look to beat Cleveland.
The Cavaliers are going to run through the rest of the Eastern Conference.
They might not lose a game.
They might not. They're going up against either Toronto or Miami. Both of those teams are going to be banged up. That's a long series. There's just no competition. I think if Chris Bosh might have been able to play for the Heat, it would have at least been a decent competition. But unless the Cavaliers completely forget how to shoot, or they just get extremely unlucky, they're going to roll through the rest of the Eastern Conference, go on to the finals, and I really think whoever they face from the West is going to be interesting. Right now, the Warriors, they have it's 2-1 right now, and more than likely they're going to finish this game. I think they're going to finish it in 5. I think they go out, they win these next 2 games. We don't see Steph Curry at all, and he's going to be fully healthy. So the Warriors are going to be a good matchup. And then between the Spurs or the Thunder, they're duking it out right now. And I think the Spurs may have underestimated the Thunder a little bit. I mean, do you think, because everyone just assumed it was going to be Warriors Spurs going into the Western Conference Finals, and the Thunder at the 3 seed they're just saying, you know what, we're a good team.
Don't discount us.
We have 2 of the best players in the league.
Yeah, no, watching these NBA playoffs and NHL playoffs has been very exciting, and it's fun to see what teams have done that have defeated our Detroit teams. But first and foremost, you're absolutely right. Cleveland should be in the NBA Finals. Barring an injury, a significant problem, I don't see their play. Getting a whole lot worse over the next stretch of time. Out there in the West, it's going to be a gauntlet. It's going to be tough. I don't think San Antonio underestimated them, because when you have a great coach like Popovich, he's going to have that team prepared. What's going to be fun and fascinating is, can finally Kevin Durant and Westbrook get over the hump? Can they step it up another gear and say, listen, we've been a stepping stone for these teams like Golden State, like San Antonio for so long. Can we take over a series and get us to that next level? Because it's time. I mean, I would hate to see Kevin Durant waste all that time in OKC and never get to the finals and never have an opportunity to win it.
The only thing I care about, I just want whoever from the Western Conference, I want them to be healthy enough and ready to beat the Cavs, because I don't want Cleveland to ever win an NBA title. Never. Never, ever, ever.
No,
never.
You think they're insufferable now?
Never.
Never.
No, I don't want to ever see them win an NBA title. I want LeBron to leave next year and go play for Golden State. Win himself another title.
So now you have an opportunity, and that's what you should be doing as Pistons fans, is looking, okay, Cleveland, how does Andre Drummond match up to Kevin Love? And you go, okay, Kevin Love, led the league this year in rebounds. This is a guy that can shoot the 3. He's versatile. He's very athletic. That's a guy that you wish you had. But if you have Andre Drummond, you're going to max him out, because obviously the owner just fawns over him and basically he's like, here's the check. There's no negotiating going to go on. He just, opened up his cards and was like, here, I have the aces. I have the guy. I know I'm going to pay him. So now you got Andre Drummond. He has to get more consistent on the offensive end, and he has to be more of a force.
Yeah, he needs.
He has to be.
The dude just needs to figure out his free throws.
That's what he's got to figure out.
That's really all he needs to do.
And I got a feeling he will figure it out. And, whether it be shoot underhand, granny style, whatever style, I do believe he's not going to be a 35% free throw shooter. That would be catastrophic if he stayed like that.
So I was looking up his stats. Mm-hmm. The way that it worked out is if he had hit just 50% of his free throws, he would have scored a full point more a game. But that's only if he would have still played the amount of minutes that he did. If he was shooting 50% of his free throws, he's playing more every night. He's getting more rebounds. He's probably scoring more. He becomes more of a force. And that's just 50%. I looked at a guy who I would really kind of compare Andre Drummond to as to what he was. And I looked at Hassan Whiteside. I mean, would you say those are two prototypical NBA centers?
You got it.
Hassan Whiteside shot like 62%.
Tough injury, though, right? Oh, what injury. He went out, right?
It is tough. But if he shot what Hassan Whiteside did at 62%, that bumps him up to a full 2 points per game. And again, that's only with the minutes that he played.
Now, I wanted to talk about something that, has been making the rounds and is something that may benefit the Pistons greatly and something that hasn't been talked about as much, but is super, super key and maybe a saving grace for Andre Drummond to keep him on the floor late in games. So the whole Hack of Drummond thing has been a sour point for fans who are watching this because it's not entertaining and it's tough to watch. You got people paying roughly on average $70 a ticket and it's bogging down the game. So NBA Commissioner Silver has to come out and go, you know what? I have to look at this. Now, for me as a purist, I would say leave the rules alone. Don't, make adjustments for guys like, DeAndre Jordan, like Andre Drummond. Don't change the rules. Make his ass work and get better and let these teams take advantage of this. That's not the world we live in. The world we live in is we got to make sure our fans are still going to be willing to shell out that dollar. So Andre Drummond hit the jackpot. They're going to do away with the Hack of Drummond. It's going to be gone. So he's going to have an opportunity now to kind of get a reprieve, get a pass and be able to not be, hacked all the time because they'll make it so that it's absolutely, it's a disadvantage for teams to do that. What are your thoughts about that? Do you think that the NBA should have did that? And, should Andre Drummond be thanking his lucky stars?
Andre Drummond should be thanking his lucky stars that they do this. And it's tough for me because I really don't like it. I think it slows down the game. And for a sport that is, I think it's slowly becoming the fourth best of the major sports, I think you need to make your product better. But I mean, I completely understand this is something that's totally legal. And I also agree that players, they should just make their shots. If they're going to do this, just figure it out. If you make your shots, they're not going to do it. It's a tough subject, I think.
But now, so then for Drummond, he'll be able to stay on the floor more. He won't be pulled late in games. And I fully give Stan Van Gundy credit because you had a situation where not many head coaches maybe would have been willing to do that with a guy that's potentially your star athlete. But Stan Van Gundy is the president and coach of the team. He took him out late in games and was open to say, hey, this is a guy that I can't do anything with late in games, so I had to do it. So Andre Drummond's going to be a focal point. A lot of people, when we make the argument, do the Pistons need a superstar, they say, you might have one in Andre Drummond. I don't see superstar. I see really above average.
He's
NBA
an all-star.
talent. He's an all-star. So for me, I do think that the Pistons are going to continue to evolve and continue to add pieces, a reliable.
But I don't think we necessarily.
I think we need a superstar. I believe that.
I really don't think so. I think you see teams. I don't know.
No,
I was going to say
you look at
the
the
San Antonio
landscape.
Spurs. They went out and got
Superstar.
Marcus Aldridge, Kawhi Leonard.
Superstars.
Yeah, they got superstars.
Golden State. They have their superstar go out and they're still rolling teams by 10 points.
What about Atlanta? They're getting rolled. I get it.
I don't want to be Atlanta. I want to be Cleveland.
I get it. I get that you want to have a superstar, and it really would be cool to somehow go out and give as much back up the Brinks truck to Kevin Durant and have him suit up in the red, white, and blue next season. But I think Drummond, he's at least an all-star. But we have pieces on this team that work. I think Reggie Jackson, I think he could develop into he can at least develop into an all-star similar to what Drummond's doing, or at that type of level. But I think we need more pieces on this team to really succeed. And
Some would argue maybe Stanley Johnson's that guy, a guy that's been willing to stand up in the media, stand up for his teammates, a guy that's been a winner everywhere he's been and can hit shots.
and he'll definitely develop. It's his rookie season. I think he's going to get more time next year. I wouldn't even be surprised if you see Stanley Johnson take over a starting role next season. Maybe have Tobias Harris come off the bench. Even though Tobias Harris was a great breath of fresh air, I think Harris can really serve as an anchor for that second unit to really give it some scoring. But even with the people that we have right now, we need more scoring. That's really what it comes down to.
But do you get a sense that the Pistons are building toward a title team, or do you get a sense that they're building toward a collective unit that can be competitive in the postseason? See, my cynical thinking is I watch elite basketball because I tend to focus more on the NBA Eastern Conference, Western Conference Finals, and the NBA Finals. And in those moments, you've seen what the difference was with the Pistons now and teams that advance. Most of the time, the teams are going to be competitive into the fourth quarter. It's then those final 6 minutes that are going to determine whether a club goes forward or not. And in those 6 minutes, you see the guys that make shots. Those are the teams that move on. Is late in the game when it's crunch time that you got guys that can create their own shot and hit it consistently. The Pistons, I don't know if it's going to be Reggie, KCP, or Tobias Harris. I don't know if they're going to develop into that.
I see the Pistons. They're developing into just a really solid team.
Right.
They're gonna be good. And I think you look at the Pistons that won the title back in 2004. It's essentially the same thing. They were a really solid team. They didn't have a superstar. They had Rip Hamilton, Chauncey Billups, Ben Wallace.
I don't say you can't have a superstar. Chauncey and Rasheed were guys with a lot of NBA respect. They weren't superstars maybe viewed by the rest of the league, but they were superstars. Rasheed was a baller before he came to Detroit. He was a guy with a great reputation and a guy that was super high basketball IQ and would basically anchored that Portland team for years. I wouldn't say Rasheed wasn't a superstar. I would say he was like the Brendan Shanahan. When they brought him on board, they took off.
Yeah, but then they only won one title.
But they got the 6th Eastern Conference. They could have got another one if he hadn't made that boneheaded mistake.
That doesn't mean anything.
But what I'm saying is when you look at it with this team is I think they might be building for a run, but I don't think you're going to see a 6 to 7 year run like Golden State might be on now, like the Pistons were on.
That's what I maybe a 2 or 3. I think that they're going to have enough to maybe be in the finals at some point, and get there,
and then rebuild faster,
consistently contend.
Yeah.
But I don't think that. I completely agree. This isn't the team when it's built to its completion. It's not going to be a team that is
a dynasty.
Yeah, it's not going to. They're not going to win 3 or 4 championships in a row. They're not even going to win 2 championships.
See, that's what I want. I want to build a Golden State. I want to build a team that I know that we can have Andre Drummond go out and it's all good. If Andre Drummond goes out, the season's over. So I want to build a team.
Time has passed, though. Honestly, that time has passed.
Really?
There's nothing we can do. You're talking about tanking again. You'd have to
basically have success, then tank.
You'd have to strip it down again to having a bad team. So you're getting high draft pick. So you're looking at drafting those top guys. And I don't think we're going to see the talent come in the NBA draft that we've seen in the past. You're not just going to be able to draft LeBron James. You're not going to see a Kevin Durant or Russell Westbrook come out, because it's just the way that college basketball and everything is developing nowadays.
So basically saying, Doc, accept it for what it is. Let's see where this roller coaster takes us. There should be a high point, and whenever that comes, we'll see what it takes us, where it'll bring us.
I think we should be happy with one title. We should appreciate one title.
Yeah, if they get it, of course I'll be happy. Yeah, that one title allowed us to relax the next 5 years, but it was definitely a great run because then they got to the finals again. You really got to look back. That 2005 series versus San Antonio was awesome. It was a nice series. 7 games. That game versus
Cover Robert Horry.
It was a great series. And I do think that we do take advantage, kind of poo-poo what the Pistons did in getting to all those Eastern Conference championships because they kind of held on a little bit too long, and we focused a little bit more on the fact that they sold off Chauncey for Allen Iverson and things like that. But they had a great run, and I feel like SVG is building it. I'm always looking sometimes to not always just look to what we have, but look to the the other side.
So when you're looking at trying to build this team, then I think there's 3 main things that you need to look at in the offseason. You need to get a backup point guard because Steve Blake, he's a great guy, but he's not going to carry you to a playoff win. You need to look at a power forward who can shoot the lights out, and probably another long range shooter. You need that power forward needs to be a guy kind of like Kevin Love. You need to have somebody who can maybe play the 5, but also be able to go out and shoot a 3 here or there. Andre Drummond, he shoots like 1-3 every 2 years.
No, we don't want. If Andre Drummond starts shooting threes and making them, oh my God, look out!
So looking at the point guards out there, I think Mike Conley, he's the top point guard out there, but he's a starter. There's no chance that guy's coming here. I think the guys you got to look at, Jeremy Lin and Charlotte. He's quietly made a name for himself.
Yeah, he's a name being bantered about.
Ty Lawson, he killed us at UNC. I really hate Matthew Dellavedova, but I feel like he's a guy that if he came.
Do you hear
Detroit,
the numbers? Do you hear the numbers that he might likely sign for?
Dude, the guy's
$10 million a year.
He's going to get a max deal.
When I saw that, I saw $10 million for Dellavedova. You got to be kidding me right now, man! Oh man, these contracts. I know inflation is elevated, but $10 million a year for Dellavedova. Get out of here. Pelfrey gets 8. Oh my God.
One guy that I would be interesting to see would be Maurice Williams, Mo Williams from Cleveland. I think that's a guy who can go out there and provide some instant offense. But I think another even more realistic option, why not just bring Brendan Jennings back?
Well, that's an interesting look there. But
he's a guy.
Do you think that Brandon Jennings and Reggie Jackson could fit in the same locker room with those egos? I do believe Jennings has the potential in his own mind to think that he's better than he is.
And I think that's the only way you bring him in is if he understands what his role is. If he understands that he's the backup point guard and he's the guy who's going to take over that second string of guys. Because right now, KCP is essentially the lead guy for the second string. I think if Brandon Jennings would be perfect in that role because he would be the offense would essentially roll through him and he'd be able to create for more people. I think it'd be a perfect fit. It's not a perfect world. I don't think we're not going to get everything that we want. Do you have any other point guards who you think might be a good fit?
No, you named them all. Maybe one in the draft, but
you never know who we're going to get in the draft.
Exactly. And
I would love to see Denzel Valentine. I'm raising my hand right now.
Okay. I like the fact that the stock for the Detroit Pistons is on the rise. We're talking about them way more. There's a little bit more hope with them. I believe like the Red Wings, their stock is down. The Lions stock is kind of always a question mark. The Tigers, people are not really happy. The team in Detroit right now that people are really looking to maybe have that strong future is the Detroit Pistons. And SVG is a strong leader. Getting him into the postseason was a really strong success, and I think he's going to build on it. I think that we are going to have an opportunity to enjoy the ride and to be able to debate and take a quick inside look into what's going on with the Pistons. It's going to be fun to see. And now they're making their decision. They're going all in, and it's going to be interesting to see whether or not Reggie Jackson, Andre Drummond are the guys. A lot of people have question marks. I hope that they take that and use it as a way to motivate them to become where they need to be because, you have a lot of pieces. It's just you have a lot of question marks too. So it's fun to check it out.
Is there one of those positions, backup point guard, shooting power forward, or a long range shooter that you would overpay to get? Is there?
I would overpay to get a guy like J.R. Smith. A guy like J.R. Smith has turned around the Cleveland Cavaliers because SVG is building a team that is going to need to be consistent, high volume shooters, and he wants to shoot the 3. You know that. Everybody knows it, but they don't have the guys that are going to consistently make it. J.R. Smith right now, if he stays on fire, Cleveland's not losing. But most people think that he's going to cool off at some point, and the others are going to have to step it up. I would want KCP to step it up, and I want another guy that can shoot a la Aaron Aflalo.
Would you give max money to Pau Gasol?
No.
You wouldn't to Pau Gasol?
No.
I think he would be an interesting player on this team. If you put him, you start, Reggie, I don't know, Reggie, KCP, Stanley, Pau Gasol, Andre Drummond. I think that's a solid lineup. I think Pau Gasol can play that stretch 5 when you need to.
He'd be. You said, "What? I give him a max deal."
Yeah,
I don't think he's worth max money. No, not at this point in time. I think his better years are behind him.
Would you overpay him more than anybody else, though?
You could potentially. He's a guy I wouldn't be totally off. He's got experience, could teach the guys, and he's come from a lot of winning organizations. Why not? But not a max guy.
We're likely not getting that guy.
No,
because he's gonna go get as much money as possible, try to win another ring. I think power forward, you're likely looking at Ryan Anderson.
Yeah, that's a guy.
That was who we were looking at the trade deadline this year.
Yep.
I think there's a good chance he's coming here to Detroit.
You think so?
Yeah, I see that happening.
That's not bad.
And I think shooting guard, I think that's where you look in the draft. You try and find somebody who can go out there and shoot the lights out for us.
Man, oh man, it's gonna be a fun time. It's gonna be a fun couple seasons now with the Pistons. They're gonna be in the mix. They're gonna be in the conversation, and they're the team in Detroit with the highest stock. And probably now you look at it across the board, outside of the college teams, SVG's the best guy running the ship in all the sports.
And that's what gives me the most hope about this team, is because SVG he's got this team in the right direction. Through 2 years, he brought this team from being just absolute garbage. And now they're in the playoffs. They got swept by the Cavs, but we see what the Cavs are doing right now.
And they got a premier spot on the Motor City Sports Rant, a whole segment. We carried a half hour on the Detroit Pistons, just like that.
I know. The season's done.
I was telling Adam when we were talking about like kind of stuff we've been talking about, in the last couple of years, we barely spoke about the Pistons until this year, where we really broke it down, got to talk to a lot more insiders. Big props to everyone that's been coming on our shows and talking basketball. And it's been fun. It's been something that it's nice to see something from the ground up being built, and there's a lot of hope, and it's going to be very, very fun to see what's going to happen in the 2016 season. I'm excited.
Yeah, and hopefully we talk Pistons a lot more. But I think that's going to do it for this episode of the Motor City Sports Rant. All of you have a good week. For me, Jason Jarvie, he's John the Doc Macaroon. We'll see you next week.
Okay, nice idiot. You. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.